in here. All right. Welcome to Drilling Down on Demographics with Simply Analytics and More. My name is John Henry Muir. I'm a librarian here with the Small Business and Information Services Department, St. Louis County Library. So we'll start off. What is demographics? Well, demographics is a way that we count people. And so Simply Analytics has demographics built into it. You may have originally heard about the US Census. That's kind of our main demographic source. It's done every 10 years. The government's constitutionally required to count everybody in the United States every 10 years and get a very specific count of people in there. Well, the Census Department has performed what's called the American Community Survey. You'll see it abbreviated as ACS. About every year, there's a little hiccup during the pandemic where it wasn't performed exactly as it used to be, but they do a survey asking a lot more intense questions of about 1 in 1,000 people across the United States. And so you get the ACS. I've got links and I'll share this this presentation with everybody that has signed up here. So demographic information, if you want to find out more about demographic information, I've made what's called a LibGuide. You can study information on there, various places to find it. I also have a link to the Census Department, and all this data that you find at the Census website, you'll also find baked into Simply Analytics as well. You'll also find data, and this is a thing that Simply Analytics has, at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You also find something at the National Center for Health Statistics, and each state and oftentimes counties will have state and local data with demographic information concerning housing a lot of times, particularly like county offices to figure out property taxes. You can find information there. You also find public studies and private studies. So these would be organizations such as think tanks or even companies or professional organizations that deal in something I mentioned housing before, like real estate, that might engage in real estate and the like. So next, we will talk about Simply Analytics. Now, where is it? I have a link here for it, but you may not want to go and find this. So I'll show you how to find it on the library webpage. And people that are here, and if you're at home, I encourage you to visit www.slcl.org. And follow along here. So if you know the name of a database, you can go up here and make sure you click the website radio button by the search bar, and then type in the name of the database. You can type that in and then spell that out and hit enter, or click the little search button. Or if you go to research and learn, so we want to research, you can find our databases here. You can find it under resources A to Z here. And then you can also go down further down. We have it set in our small business resources. And if you scroll down here, see what's going on in the department, you have Simply Analytics right here. Go ahead if you'd like.
Down demographics.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and when you get that opened up, the password is a lowercase x. And then just go forward and find what's here.
Oh, literally just a lowercase x.
Yeah, just X and then enter. Yep. So from Simply Analytics, you'll click Go to Resource. And it's going to ask you, you all might not be asked this because you're wired in here, but over the Wi-Fi, I have to enter in my library card number and my PIN. And if you're at home, for the people at home, go and do that as well. I encourage you, especially people here and also the people at home, to go and set up an account if you'd like to follow along. Things that account to do, and we'll talk about that here, or you can browse as a guest. Get back to my slideshow here. We'll talk a little bit about Simply Analytics as we find it and get logged in. It is data rich, it is extensible, There is no simple 1, 2, 3 instructions to get to where you have to go. It really helps to have a question first and work on something. We'll work on that here. It really doesn't matter because you can come back and you can begin to adjust as you build your data sets, your geography and your data sets. And just remember, there are no mistakes. I like to go with the Bob Ross saying on this when he's doing paintings. You may have heard this. We don't make mistakes, we just have happy accidents. So don't be discouraged by going into simply analytics. Just remember, you just made a happy accident and discovered something new. So why make an account? You can go and you can not make an account. That's fine. But reasons you'll make an account is you can save your projects, make unique names for unique charts, graphs, maps, and etc. that you build in Simply Analytics. And if you're a business person, you can come back every so often, and it's constantly uploaded with new data. So you can come in and reset your data. Some of the data from it comes from 2023, some comes from 2025, 2024. And as your business goes and continues, you'll get 2026 data and so on. And then when a new census happens, 2030, and that data comes out 2031, you'll have that there. You can come back later, you can continue your work, update information, do new data is uploaded, or I talked about that. Customize the look of your visualizations. You can have these highly visual and colorful maps and some other charts and stuff. And you can customize the look of those by changing the color, changing the demographic splits, and changing all kinds of things. And track the progress of your business to see, not really of your business, but how your business might be affecting the market. Okay, all right. So as we sign in, I'm going to go ahead and sign in as a guest for my demonstration, but I encourage you, if you want to follow along, you can, like I say, sign in as a guest or make your own account. It does have a verification. Make sure you spelled everything right. Make sure you're a person and do that. When you first start up Simply Analytics, after you sign in, so the first time you sign in, so also when you make an account, you can skip this, but you can always come back. This is a little tutorial. So we'll be spending more than just this quick tutorial. I'm going to close this out. And we're going to start by looking for a geography. Actually, going to go back and just talk about the sample business. I'm going to use Simply Analytics as a way we can apply it to a business. There's thousands of different business possibilities, but I want to focus on a business that's going to start selling dog food. Just a small business going to sell dog food. So why am I doing this? To kind of have a goal to keep us focused. Like I say, you go into Simply Analytics and you don't know what question to ask, it becomes a little bit harder to use. So if you have a question you can ask of it, having that question is there. I would just be wandering around. It's like trying to show you how to get to that pond, that nice swimming hole in the back of the woods, and don't know where to go, just kind of wandering around. So now we know where we want to go. So we can start at which stage. I'm going to say I'm a startup, a starting business person. So which direction? Startup, finding new retail locations. So that's how I kind of want to start. So geography choices, that's where we're at right now. New project. Search one or more locations that you would like to analyze. Now you can skip this. For right now, I'm going to go and focus on where we are in St. Louis County. So you just go and type in the name of your location. And for this database, they use the ST. Some other databases, you might find they'll spell out Saint, or they might want you to put a dot in there or not. I'm going to use St. Louis County, Missouri. And you can add more locations if you want. You can even switch it up and add zip codes on there if you want, or whatever you're thinking of. I'm going to keep it at St. Louis County now. Just moving here. Next thing, it's going to ask you to put in data. This is your basic demographic information. You've got 10 items here. You know, you may want to use these. I may want to use these for my dog food business. But right now I'm not seeing any, but I'm going to keep these here just to keep them. I can remove them later. I'm going to start building my first project. So I'm going to keep it, create the project. These are basically the first thing that people ask when they get in it. How many people live in an area? How much do they make? How much is housing value? So on. So here we have our data. It pretty much automatically takes you to the map. So in this map, I'll use the mouse so the people at home can follow along. We see St. Louis County outlined, and we see the colors on the map represented by the legend over here, and we can see the splits. And these are kind of standard splits. for that quintile splits. If you want to, you can pull it down. You can change your light theme, dark theme, whatever you like to do. Oh, wait, there we go. You can also go into edit and you can change your splits to be quantiles, natural breaks, equal intervals. You can even make it custom. If you want to adjust things, you can adjust these here. You can change the thickness of these little outlines between these zip codes here. And the color of your outline. So you can make all kinds of customization with how it looks, but also with the math a little bit here. And you can change the math if you want. So you can make this at 40%. You can do some rounding on that if you want. And it will change that for you, depending on how wide you are. That's our map. So we'll get back to that legend a little bit. So our geography choices, what we're defaulted as is we're defaulted at originally USA, states, counties, cities, zip codes, and those are labeled as ZCTAs, which is a fancy way, which is actually stands for zip code tabulation areas. The census works one way and the post office works another way. The post office's job is to deliver you something in the most efficient manner. The census likes to say, does this area have the same population, the same kind of setup from year to year to year? So they kind of approximate zip codes and they'll change some things. So so as you go on, they kind of do that. And sometimes you'll notice a zip code will be on one side of the street, it'll kind of zigzag, but that's because the post office needs to zigzag how the delivery drivers go and things. So, but what they actually use is what's called ZCTA, but they generally correspond to zip codes. Next, we have census tracts and then census blocks. And these are all set up that if you're searching for these, you can find them. So we can see, back you up and hop back to Simply Analytics. And you can see this tells us the educational attainment in St. Louis County, Missouri by zip codes. And so it has states, counties, cities, zip codes, and census tracts. Little warning, because we do have unincorporated areas here in St. Louis County, you can see that when you do choose cities, it kind of leaves out some of these rural areas and some of the unincorporated areas that we have in St. Louis County, but it does have other ones that are called census designated places. So places like Afton and Spanish Lake and Oakville and such are labeled out, even though they aren't specifically cities, but those are sometimes labeled out. But you can see some of the rural areas are not highlighted here. So just a little warning when you're doing cities like that. That's why I like to use zip codes or census tracts and census blocks. Smallest piece of geography is the census block, and that's a designation that the census has. Actually, we'll pull it down so we can see about how narrow it is. We actually have to zoom in for it to tell us the block groups. You can see the size of the block groups, and then we can see the size of the census tracts, which will include several block groups. And then you can get a little bit larger and go to zip codes, which don't always line up. But as we get to learn these types of geographies, this will become more natural for you on that. Now, I want my business to focus on the St. Louis metropolitan area. Well, I don't see the metropolitan area come up here. So I need to adjust my project a little bit. So if we go up here into project settings, we can open up project settings and we can see these are the ones that are already pre-selected, that are always enabled. And then we have options, the regions, divisions, core-based statistical areas, and so on down at elementary school districts. I'm going to select core-based statistical area. And what a core-based statistical area is, a clump of things that have slightly different names. And by the different names, usually we mean metropolitan area, but the census also has designations of micropolitan area, and they also have a designation of combined statistical area. So micropolitan area, you'll see a place like Farmington labeled under that. You'll see places like Hannibal, Quincy, Springfield, Illinois under micropolitan areas. These areas are a little bit smaller. And then combined statistical areas are places that will have two separate metro areas. And I like to use the example of Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. Baltimore is a metropolitan area and DC is a metropolitan area, but together they make a combined metropolitan area because of their proximity. And even more so, there's even another one that includes Philadelphia and so on. So now that we have core-based statistical area labeled out, we can pop out and choose core-based statistical areas. And if you want to see the United States, we can see where these are. Now, how do we know what these are named? If we click this little eye here, when we're on the map, we can click an area, and it's going to tell us what the name of that is. We've got Kansas City, Missouri here, Springfield here, and so on. Got Quincy up here. So that's one way to do that. But I want to now add, as when I do my searches, I'm going to set up a way that I'm going to search just things, just zip codes or even census tracts in the St. Louis metropolitan area. So I want to change my geography. Right now, my geography is set to St. Louis County. So if I go back to locations, I can search for locations. St. Louis, let me see, St. Louis, Missouri, Illinois, metropolitan area, the core-based statistical area here. Everybody's got chats for me. And we can see it's labeled out and the map recentered on our area. So should we do the project settings to add our geography types here? Now creating custom locations, and as we build on, I'll talk about custom locations a little bit later. But if we go over here to custom locations, we can begin to build custom locations. So we can make a radius location. So we are located at where I am right now, 1640 South Lindbergh, zip code 62131. And that's not a location that's in there, but it allows us to do an address search, and the database finds a block group or whatever, where the address is. We're in Ladue, we're in this zip code. That's the problem with zip codes, and then the ZCTAs, we're actually in 6131, but we're in the 6124 Z. Anyways, I'll choose the block group, and then we can make a radius of 3 miles, and we'll be coming back to this as I have that here. Location name, CF center. So it makes a center in this block group that's the smallest geographic area, and then maps that out. You can see that custom location here. We can also make a combination location. So name your combination location. We'll call it 5 zips. And I can make the combination location. I can just add in various different places where I've lived around the metropolitan area or worked. Or just zip codes I've memorized because I've lived there before, and it will make our combination location. Now you could even make the combination location. So if you want to, let's look at KC and St. Louis, you could make metropolitan area as your combination location or whatever you do. Just a little warning, as you begin to make those clumped up areas and those metropolitan areas, those combined areas, because some of them deal with medians and means and averages and such, when you begin to combine those, the math starts to break down. So when you find data on those combined areas, it doesn't quite work as well, and it will break down on those factors. Fun math stuff, but yes, it doesn't work because you're finding it knows the medians of these things, but it can't just do the median between those two things. That you may have to do a little bit extra math on that. This won't do that work for you. So we can see the combined area, and they don't have to touch each other as we see here, but these generally do. Let me go back and change the area I want to look at back to the St. Louis metropolitan area. So you see at the top of the map, we've got St. Louis, Missouri metro area, and now we're looking at this area again. Now, let's say I am making pet food, dog food. So what do I want to find? What businesses would I want to find if I want to begin to put my food in retail establishments and sell to people? What's one of the first places?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
If my business, my theoretical business that I'm walking this through wants to begin to sell locally, what kind of businesses would I begin to look at to kind of market to, that they can market to consumers, retail locations?
Grocery store?
Grocery stores, see, I've never done that yet. But pet food, like pet food stores, pet supply stores, vets, possibly even like boarding places. So let's begin to look at that. So we can search for businesses by name. So if you know a name of a business, so Schnucks, You can put in that name and find all the Schnucks stores. You could also find grocery stores, pet food stores, by looking up something more general called by either the SIC code or the NAICS code. And not to get too complicated, but it's just coding. It's just a way of classifying in industry that the census has set up for us and the Department of Commerce. So let's go up here in the upper left. We'll look at businesses. And I can search for a business, or what I'm gonna actually do is browse business categories. As a matter of fact, I already have my 6 of my NAICS laid out. NAICS 459910. So I'm actually gonna use advanced, since I've already done the work on this, not really walk through. NAICS starts with what do we say? 459910. We can begin to see it's like 4599, 45991. Now we're getting pet and pet supplies retailers, and we have 190. So I'm actually going to keep it 45991 and choose that. And then we can add a condition or contains, and we could choose another one here, or contains 812910. Makes contains 812. Pet care, so place to do that, do pet care, so I can do that. And you can continue to add conditions. Just be careful about your operator here, your or, because if you're looking for separate places, like if we end up looking for grocery stores, if I look for a pet food store, a place that has a mix of a pet food store and a grocery store, I might find nothing. But if I look one that has this or this, just beware of your operator, go back and double check that. So now we can search. And it found all these areas around the St. Louis metropolitan area. So you have all these areas here, and as you can see, as we zoom in, it should, well, it's set it to auto. It has this here, but it's mapped over educational attainment, although it might matter a little bit, just a little bit on our pet food sales. I don't think it's the highest priority of things we want to look for. Right? You know, maybe income that we had there before. So, you know, we can map it over income. That might matter for a higher price brand or something like that. We can do that. And we can see all these things that are here too. So if you just click on the number, you'll see what their name is, where they're located, and information like that. We'll talk a little bit more about how to find even more details on a business. We have time at the end. But I want to find a little bit more data. I say we can find partners. You can also find data competition out there. So I can find partners, places that supply meat and grain or whatever I need to make my dog food. Possible distributors, even wholesalers, competition, and we'll talk about other database choices. But now I want to get data in there. Now I want to find. Now I found the stores. So we found the places we want to market to first, but we don't know where the people are. Those stores are probably there for people because people are there, so it gives us a little bit of a clue. But we can't hit all those. Looks like over 100 stores in the metropolitan area. So now we want to find where we want to start our business. So we can go to this data section, and let's just type in, because we're selling dog food, dog food. And see, first, it kind of doesn't think about that. It's thinking about, so it's a hot dog, so it's a dog, and then food. Nice food for a dog, but let's choose pets. Let's filter out for pets. So now we have, you can see number of household products, pets, canned, wet dog food, brand, containers, people that bought in the households, number of households that bought in the last 7 days, any kind of benefit. We can see by brand, all these items here. So Natural Balance. I'm making a fancy dog food, so I'm going to find, you know, they have blue buffalo in here. Well, let's say some of our competitors are this Purina Moist and Meaty, Purina One, and so you can begin to click on these and add these in to this place. You can see how many households bought in the last 6 months, bought in the last month. So these are based on surveys from the organization from Simmons Local Surveys that go out to households as well. So here's Blue Buffalo. I can say, oh, that's a competitor. Percent of households that have used Blue Buffalo in the last 6 months. That's going to tell me places I may want to hit. You can see a long list, 519 that we have. Now let's take this out because there's another thing I want to search for, and that is household spending. Pets. Spending category, pets. So consumer expenditure estimates, entertainment, pet toys, and hobbies. So the household average on spending. And you can even see demographics, the number of households that have cats, number of households that have dogs. So, or number of dogs in households, percentage of households that have dogs. So that's a piece of data we can add. Number of households that have any dogs. Number of households that own a pet, spent on pet foods. We can pick amounts if we want. Amounts spent on pet care, amounts spent on all kinds of different things. You can just begin to add these, and this is one reason why you may want to make up your different projects as well. So if you want to make a new project in the upper part, you can do new project. Let me show you how to name this. So dog food company startup. Enter, and that renames your project. And when you make a new project, it'll say new project number 2. So demographics, households, dogs, and any number of dogs. So we can see that. So it's broken down by zip code, and we can see areas where a lot of households here, kind of Fenton Way, have a high percentage of households that own dogs, 63%. But we can see that there are, so let's try to find zip codes that 50% of the households own dogs. Let me see the other number. Number of money that people have spent on pets, and the high amount is, let's say, over time. Okay, so let's build ourselves a filter. So with every one of these views we have, we can actually build a filter, so we can begin to find areas that have what we want. So household, entertainment, pet toys, hobbies, and playground equipment, household average. So once again, this is kind of a big, broad one. But let's find is greater than or equal to $1,000 and areas, zip codes that have more than 50%. So $1,000. So here. So these are the areas. It's not in the core areas, less people own dogs. So maybe you want to adjust your search, but you can see areas that meet both those criteria on the filter that we set. And if you want to know what those zip codes are, once again, you can click the eye that's over on the left below the zoom in out box and click on the zip code, and you begin to have those zip codes show up for you. And even if stuff, if you know there's a zip code you want to go, even with the filter, you can still select it. So you can say, well, wait a second. I want to see, so I want to see how many dogs. So, you can change your percentage number to be like, okay, well, I want to hit an area that's more like that. If you know an area that you want to hit, so you could do something like that. But here, the filter that we have is this. So we built that filter, and now we can begin to know areas. And we also know these high spending areas. We've got 11 places here that are near these other zip codes. And so we can begin to target these stores and build this out. Fortunately, it's hard to build a list off of this, and I'm still learning how to possibly do that. But so yeah, you can change your actions, you can change how a lot of things look. So it's a way you can begin to build this data in here. As we go through this, we found the data. So let me look up pet food as well again. And just look up generally pet food here. So pet food household average, so that's one I can add there. So actually we know how much people spend on pet food, so we can add that in there. And if you want to know the information about it, these little three dots on the right of that allows you to view metadata. So it tells you where it came from. So this came from the consumer expenditure public use microdata samples, and that's through the Department of Labor. It's from the American Community Survey, and just tells you where you can find it else. You can find this information from the US Department of Labor. These are 2022 numbers. And so we're coming up with that. I can toggle off my filter now, and I can actually go apply. And we have amount spent on pet food specifically. So you can see the top spenders spend about more than $350 on food for zip codes. And we can even, if you really want to get narrow, you can go down to census tracts, just smaller than zip codes, and even block groups. And you'll find some areas will begin to not be colored in. And you also find sometimes you might be searching and you might find gray areas or areas that have no data. And that's either because the survey didn't happen there, or you might also find something that might be 100%. That seems out of place. That's because it was a survey and they called that area. One person said they had a cat in their house, and so 100% of the house cats. Because there's 5 people that live in the area. Or you might find zip codes where nobody really lives, like Earth City. It's all warehouses, so you might find data where it could be a lower number and stuff like that. So just be aware about what you're actually looking on that. So just a warning of that. Okay. So hopefully, is this making sense? I know it's a lot of stuff. Yeah, good.
I have one question.
Yeah, sure. What's up?
So the heat map,
Mhm.
whenever you choose a data set, can you only have one at a time?
For the maps, yeah, you can do that filter. So, but you can only show one piece of data at a time. That's what I said, because these come from different projects. It's hard to really get that tabulation just right and have it be correct, or at least close enough to correct to be valid. So that's a problem with that, but you can toggle, you can have two maps and have those, make separate projects, use that filter. And that filter allows you to get that data of those hotspots. So you can add so many filters here, and we can use that more. We can begin to see this data side by side. So I'm actually going to show you one more thing with So we're talking about data. So collecting, so you can move data. So you can go into project settings, some of the data. So you can remove locations. If you've made locations, you don't want those locations, so we can take out St. Louis County. If you want that, we can take out data. So if we don't want educational attainment anymore, median household income. So once again, that's up in project settings. Businesses, we can take things out and do that. And then you can hop back here. Just to changes kind of our pull down menu, what we're choosing from. There's all types of data. So we already saw census, spending, and this data is not just for the map view. So let's look at our next kind of views. You may be wondering what these other options on the side, they're all types of different data. So we can go to quick report. That gets us our basic census stuff. And since our core one was USA, well, I actually put St. Louis County in there, but our core is USA, and that's still there. We can keep USA in there. And this took me forever until we got training on this of how to find this. Now I want to put St. Louis metropolitan area in here, right? And see what St. Louis Metro is. So I can actually go in here on all of these. There's a little arrow in the upper left-hand corner where you can edit this. So quick report, I can edit this, and I can tell it, you know what? I want to learn about St. Louis metropolitan area and the area around here, the Clark family, and the five zips that I picked before. And here we can see your basic demographic overview of all these areas, and we can see them compared side to side. And this is where we're going to get a little bit difference. We can, for the quick view, we can get housing detail. And this is just kind of pre-made stuff for the quick view. We've got 5 minutes. I want to know the data for one area. You can do that. And this is where it starts to break down. You can see some of the housing and stuff. The housing is good for the metropolitan area, the gross rent, but when we start choosing these, because it's doing that median, it can't quite do the math right. So that's where you start to have some breakdown on some of the data, but that's only things when you start combining those areas. Housing detail, and then one of the things that's really, really awesome is you can pull up a PRISM report. What a PRISM report is, and I've got a link that you can find out more information about it, so you can read about your career stuff, but you can also use Simply Analytics, and then the support is for all the data that's it. You've got your data documentation, and you've got all these, how they break down the geographies, how they break down what all these things are. So here's Prism Premier segments, and we know about generational breakdowns, but this gets super specific. And so if you want to find out like the affluential, so this kind of family, 7 segments of the affluentials are one socioeconomic rung down from the elite suburbs with a significant drop in median income, but the residents still enjoy comfortable suburban lifestyles. The median income and income producing assets, that's the IPA, in S2 are well above the US median values. And then it has this even broken down more to like executive suites, and it tells you where they might shop at and everything like that. So if you know these areas, you can get a good view of what that is. If you know what your customer base is, tells you the stores they need to reach out to, what media outlets you might want to advertise in, and how you can reach out to your customers. So that's a really awesome thing that you can find about your areas here. And by doing this quick report, you can see them side by side. So you can see how St. Louis looks a little bit different than US in general, but how some of these, how like this Clark Family Center looks different than, as we would know, the rest of the St. Louis metropolitan area in its population breakdown. Yeah. So you can also get more specific comparison tables. So we have all this data. So let's look at. Well, I identified those geography areas earlier, but you can always change that zone here. So you can see side by side, North households that own 1 dog, any dog spend on pet food. We can do this here, and we want to, can I do that? Yeah, so I don't mind geography. So you can see side by side the number of households that have 1 dog. The St. Louis metropolitan area is ahead of the areas that I previously chose, but they do spend less on their dogs than the other area, or St. Louis metropolitan area than spends less than the area, the Clark Family branch as the center. So that just can kind of tell you areas that as you begin to choose places, if you're trying to decide zones to go to for, in our case, a retail area, but you can also see, you can find insurance spending, you can find all kinds of things. You can find the percentage of men that like to wear their hair in a mustache. That's one thing you can go if you want to look up mustache. If you want to get a barber shop. Yeah. So, hey, so there's all kinds of things. Don't be afraid and look up a brand name that might be a competitor or anything like that. You can look up all that stuff. Yeah. So yeah, see here. Actually, let's look up that. Did I spell it right? Let's do beard. So facial, beard, full. So you can see how men like to wear their hair in different places. Whether it be a full beard, so all kinds of things. That's just one of those that are far out there. Where am I here? I know I'm skipping around a lot, but don't be afraid to skip around here. So editing views. So we can edit views. Let's see. Rename. So we can rename the view. So this is our comparison table. So you can make more comparison tables, but if you want to have a separate comparison table, you can actually go. We can name it Dog Food Metro. And now our comparison table is named Dog Food Metro. Now we want to make another comparison table, but that might compare some other things. So we can go into the new view option, and we can actually add another comparison table if we want to compare different things or different metropolitan areas if we want. new view. Another thing, and this might help you with what you were asking before, we can have what's called a location query. And this will tell us that this is where it might get kind of fun too. We can say, okay, I want to know, find all states. No, I don't want to know all states. I want to find all zip codes in the St. Louis metropolitan area that spend greater than $350 on pet food. And we can also do the and. We can search. Go ahead, not cool. This will be recorded, so everybody in YouTube in about a week.
Appreciate you.
So no problem. Thanks for coming by. So all locations in the St. Louis metropolitan area that spend more than $350, and we have these areas here. We have a place, and I've done this demonstration before, and even when I looked at it, there's kind of an outlier here. If you notice with the $1,000, we kind of have the top of being $665, and it goes down. You can see about $500 a year on pet food. We have this one up here that's $1,000. Well, what is that? And I basically find out where that place was. It's a place with several horse farms. So people and horse feed counts as pet food in this case. So that's just kind of how it goes. So that's one of the things to kind of consider exactly where the data is. So location query, but you can say, tell me the places that, and then we have, and places that have greater than a 33% dog ownership. So it nails down, and that actually took out our hematite zone. And then you have areas that match up with our high spenders, high chance of dog owners. And if you want, you can actually export this out to an Excel file or anything like that. So you can email it to yourself, you can save it to your computer and have that data ready for you. Because we might want to take this data to one of the other library databases or something else, or take it to a marketer, or talk with our social media people that we're working with to kind of target these zip codes and other stuff like that. So that's one way you can use that location query to use that data and find targeted areas. Renaming, what are we doing? Make sure I'm covering everything here. Deleting multiple, exporting. So yeah, exporting is multiple. So you have multiple ones. So not just location query. And there's all different types of things. There's scatter plots, and you can look at how things may have changed through time. Related data. These are really interesting to play with. The more complicated we have here, we could spend a whole hour on each one of these. One of the things I also like to do is use the ranking table. So we can do St. Louis metropolitan area, and we can rank places. It just automatically ranks. It kind of does a little bit about what the location query does, but it doesn't kind of care about some other things. So top 100 cities, or you can do top 100 census tracts in the St. Louis metropolitan area, sorted by location name, but you could also sort it by this, and it will be your top to bottom. Or if you have something, sometimes this database, and you can get kind of clever with it, it'll ask one thing, but you want to know what the opposite of it is. Well, if you know the positive, then you know the negative. You know that. So in this first one, this St. Clair County, that 82% or 83% of households have dogs, so 17% don't. If there's something you want to find there. So that's one other way you can use it too. Kind of asking the negative by inquiring about the positive. All right. So I kind of put a little map here, just because, like I say, there's no 1, 2, 3 steps to go and use Simply Analytics. So you'll sign in, which we've already done, hopefully. Start using Simply Analytics to track your projects. Establish a goal, so make a creative question, and clearly define what you need from Simply Analytics, the question you want to ask. Are you exploring new markets? Are you strengthening your market? Are you finding new markets? Create a project or projects specific for your needs. Make a new project with clear purpose in mind. Identify and build your locations. build with a pre-made or the custom locations, get a picture of your intended areas, or to find the intended areas is another thing. And identify data and businesses, browse or search for the data you might need to answer the questions, establish your goal, and then build the perfect created views, and hopefully the data is there to match that. Use the native views to visualize and better understand the target audience. So you use those maps to put in your business plan and tell why you're going about your business planning, or to continue your business plan, or to use in some of our next database that we'll talk about. Let's talk about, we found vet places and pet boarding places and pet food stores and grocery stores that we've been selling, but now we got to a place, we've saturated the St. Louis metropolitan area market. And we want to move on. So we can begin to find other markets. So we can begin to use this to find other metropolitan areas that might answer our questions. That we know where we're successful, we know where those successful places are. Sorry about that. We know where these successful areas are, so we can do a new project. Oh, virtual location. Let's do USA. It's fine. We don't have to put that in there. Create the project without seed variables, and you can go new metro. Now you have the data that you know is successful, so you can do the map if you want. Oh yeah, this project, it's kind of funky. Every time you do a new project, you have to tell it to do new areas here. So you can look at the USA by core-based statistical areas, and we can begin to put in the same data that might be desirous for us. So data, we're gonna do pet ownership, so you can look in this pet ownership again. Pets that own any dog or cat, so high percentage of pet ownerships. And then you can begin to do this, add filters. You know, you can just add the filters that we had before, and you can ask the same questions. Find me areas that are almost exactly the same as my successful areas around the United States, and maybe I'll find a place, you know, the San Francisco Bay Area and Atlanta and Jacksonville. So you can begin to have those markets that you can branch out to and begin to sell to, and ship your products or manufacture your products or offer your services there. So that's one way you can begin to expand your business. And then you can begin to also find more customers in these areas. Let me talk a little bit about the data that we gathered in some of our other databases, because I've had to add more in there. So we got our pet food place. We've identified those zip codes in the area, and we've identified the businesses using Simply Analytics. One thing that Simply Analytics does not offer is the way to find out more specifics about a business or about a group of businesses, is build a list of businesses. Our database reference solutions does allow us to do that. So reference solutions, go to the resource, and we'll build it up, and we are looking for businesses. We can look for US businesses, and we might already know the zip codes that we have. I'm just going to use the filtering options. Sorry. When you first get there, you'll come to this quick search. If you know a name of a company, you can enter it in. If you met somebody out and about and you remember their name, or you remember their company's name, you'll be able to use this to maybe find their name in here. D&B Hoovers might work better for that particular purpose, but that allows you to find what you kind of the known, more information about the known. This will kind of like be an exploration in unknowns. We had keyword, 6 and NAICS. We had so we have we'll do veterinarians, and we'll do that's kind of grim, but no, that will come up. So here's pet food wholesale, pet food retail. So you can add those. If there's one you don't want, you can click it and remove it. And then you can narrow it down to metro area. Or if you've identified those zip codes, you could add the zip codes. We'll keep it at metro area. You could do Missouri. And St. Louis here. Well, this might even work for finding an area you're expanding the business and you have no idea where the pet food stores and the vets are in the San Francisco Bay Area. So you want to use this for that. But you can do the view results, and this will get you name of the businesses, phone numbers for them. And just as a heads up, may or may not matter for you, that little tree right there on the edge of this listing is the corporate tree. It tells you it's part of a larger corporate family. By clicking that tree, you will find the whole corporate tree. So if you want to go all the way to the top, you can see who that is, or you can see something that might be more appropriate there. But if you want to, you can choose the ones you want to call, choose them all, decide you don't want to call corporate part of the corporate trees, and go page to page, watch, rinse, repeat on this until you're ready. And then you can download this list and use it as a calling list or a mailing list if you want. And you can do a similar thing if you're looking to sell to individuals in an area. So if we go back to the front page, the database, the interface will look the same. You can take those zip codes and you can find either new homeowners to an area or do the U.S. consumer's lifestyle. These are people in this database, and you can actually do zip codes. We had our original zip codes here. And so on. You just add the zip codes as you need. And you can even, if you want to, you can add in lifestyles, and you can see pets and animals, dogs, we're selling dog food. And you can find people that rank. So just tell you a little bit about what this lifestyle is. So we all probably have a credit card, a magazine, taking out warranties on things. And all that information gets sent to marketing companies and stuff, and they begin to rate you on a ranking of 0 to 9. And if you rank 6 to 9, it means you have interest in that. So we chose dogs. We can see the number of people in these 2 zip codes that have a 6 to 9 in interest in dogs, and we can see their names here for mailing if we want to. Just a heads up, be careful, because if you're going to do phone solicitation, always double check it against federal or state databases that have been people that may have been registered for do not call list, but you do have an address for these people here, and so you could heat map them out if you'd like as well. I know it's a lot of information, sorry about that. You may want to go and use this consumer snapshot. Feel free to, but it won't give you the specifics due to privacy laws from state to state, whatever the strictest privacy law is in there. But because that lifestyle stuff comes from credit card information, which you've already signed away, and other types of information that you've already agreed to, when you go into say accept those cookies and stuff like that on your webpage, voila. You look something up, and then 5 minutes later you open up Instagram and there's ads for it. Here's a way you can go. So you have access to a little bit something like that. But yeah. And just some of our other databases we use. I mentioned D&B Hoovers lets you know a lot more people in a company. Statista is awesome for getting like broad industry reports and statistics that are already made. There's not much manipulation you can do. You can go into the consumer insight section and figure out from surveys how many women aged 25 to 35 like to use credit cards to buy cosmetics, so on and so forth. It's pretty interesting there too. Local level data. So St. Louis County has a nice data section. St. Louis County government has a nice data section, particularly when it goes to housing. And then there's other research. You can research articles, so you can research reports, studies, whether they be academic or marketing studies or anything like that. You can visit whatever your trade organization is. Oftentimes have research in there. A lot of times that research will show up in statistics. All right, thank you so much. If you have questions, the people online and the people here, one person online, people here, now is the time to ask them. I will be around and taking stuff down. This is just a link to that demographics LibGuide that I showed earlier, information on how to contact us, and contact for the youtube.com. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Stop the recording.